I was reborn, and so was my archenemy. She and I were once the most dazzling women in the capital, known as the twin jewels of the capital. In our past lives, we fought tooth and nail for the position of crown princess, only to end up both wounded and defeated. Yet when the crown prince ascended the throne, he infected a mere palace made as his empress. On the day of my coronation as empress, a poisoned cup of wine sent me away, while a white silk scarf ended her life. When we opened our eyes again, we had returned to the day when the crown prince was selecting his consort. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. Ji Ning and I stared at each other like reflections in a mirror for what felt like ages. Finally processing two pieces of news. The good news, we had both been reborn. Bad news, we've swapped bodies. Furious, she slapped herself across the face. Tang you, if we don't switch back soon, I'll slap your face until it's bruised. Not to be outdone, I drew a dagger from my sleeve and with a swish, sliced off a lock of hair. Bring it on. At worst, I'll shave you bald. Her face turned deathly pale with rage as she reached to strangle me. Seizing the moment, I grabbed her clothes, and neither of us would let go. When the imperial eunuch arrived with the decree, he saw us locked in a fierce scuffle. Even though he was accustomed to dramatic scenes, the eunuch stood frozen in place. Unable to process what he was witnessing, at the sight of the eunuch, we simultaneously released each other, both snorting coldly while refusing to make eye contact. Young ladies, the imperial consort selection banquet is about to begin. Might you tidy yourselves and proceed to the feast? The eunuch ventured hesitantly. There's no need to pack up. What's there to pack anyway? We spoke at the same time. A flicker of contempt flashed in the father-in-law's eyes as he feigned a smile and led the way. In that case, ladies, please. I knew that Ji Ning and I must have looked no different from the madwomen at the marketplace right then. But this is exactly the effect we wanted. As for the Eastern Palace, whoever wants to enter can go ahead. We won't be keeping them company in this lifetime. The palace banquet had already begun, and from afar, we could hear everyone praising how dignified, virtuous, and extraordinarily talented Ji Ning and I were. And so, under everyone's eager anticipation, Ji Ning and I made our grand entrance, limping and hobbling. The lively scene fell instantly silent, with only the sound of an overturned wine cup standing out starkly. So these are the twin jewels of the capital, more like the twin crutches of the capital, graceful, virtuous, genius, extraordinary. The crowd let out a collective sigh, utterly disappointed. Even the crown prince, who was always composed and never showed his emotions, couldn't maintain his composure this time. With a displeased expression, he asked, "Ladies, how did you end up in such a state?" Fell, hit. After finishing my conversation with Ji Ning, we exchanged glances and I quickly corrected myself. Hit, fell. I glared at Ji Ning. We've been at each other's throats for a lifetime in our past lives. I was too busy fawning over that worthless man to notice we lacked even this basic understanding. Oh. I wasn't aware the roads in my Eastern Palace were so uneven. My apologies for startling you two young ladies. The crown prince's gaze darkened slightly. Though he tried to conceal it, I still caught the flicker of mockery and calculation in his eyes. Sure enough, he shifted tactics. Since you've suffered such grievances through my negligence, it's only right I make amends. I shall directly appoint you both as Liangdi consorts and arrange your entry into the Eastern Palace at an auspicious date. I exchanged glances with Ji Ning. It seemed the crown prince still hadn't given up. Ji Ning fell to her knees with a thud. Your Highness, this humble girl suffers from a hidden ailment. Since childhood, physicians have said I cannot bear children. I fear I must disappoint your Highness's generous affection. I nearly bit my tongue off. Ji Ning, you're ruining my reputation. This isn't over between us. Your Highness, to speak truthfully, this humble girl actually prefers women. I dare not deceive your Highness. I too dropped to my knees, meeting Ji Ning's fiery gaze. I blinked playfully. Bring it on. Let's make this mutual destruction. If not for the inappropriate setting, we would have torn each other apart right then and there. I thought the crown prince would retreat from embarrassment. But instead he suddenly burst into laughter. What jokers you ladies are. Had I not known you beforehand, I might have actually believed this act. Enough now, I know you've suffered grievances today, he continued. When you enter the Eastern Palace someday, I'll compensate you doubly for this. I sneered. What a scoundrel. His words were sweeter than his songs. Yet it was clear he coveted my family's military power and the Ji family's wealth. It seems the crown prince is dead set on using us as stepping stones. When the banquet ended, Ji Ning and I agreed to call a temporary truce. each playing our roles properly until we could switch back to our own bodies. As we parted, she lifted the carriage curtain and hesitated for a long while before swallowing her pride to say, "If possible, visit my elder brother for me. I'll owe you one next time we fight." "I won't fight back." I gave a slight nod since we were switching identities. The act had to be convincing. I had been at odds with Jiyu Ning my entire life, yet this was my first time stepping into the Jiyu residence. The Jiyu family was the wealthiest in Great Yu and the maternal clan of the current emperor. Though none of them held official positions, they were still among the most prominent figures in the capital. The Jiyu estate was extravagantly opulent, with pavilions, terraces, and towers of breathtaking beauty. Beautiful as it was, I had no time to admire it now. After all, getting lost in your own backyard and not being able to ask for directions would surely give away your true identity. "Ninga, you're back. What happened to you? Did you go looking for trouble with Miss Tang again? Did you take your medicine? Does it still hurt? You promised not to make things difficult for her." "I chose to save her of my own will, even if my leg is broken. It has nothing to do with her." As soon as I stepped into the courtyard, I saw a man dressed in white holding a scroll of books, seated in a wheelchair. His features were as exquisite as a painting, gentle and refined like jade. Just one glance was enough to make it impossible to look away. Is this Jiyu Ning's elder brother, the unparalleled young master renowned throughout the land, Jiyu Yu? Wait, what did he just say? My gaze fell on his legs. Had he broken them to save me? But wasn't it His Highness the Crown Prince who saved me when the suburban villa caught fire? Seeing that I remained silent, he poured me a cup of tea and handed it over. Though that fire was suspicious, Miss Tang is also a victim. My leg was just an accident. You can't keep targeting her for this. Otherwise, how are you any different from the one who set the fire? My heart trembled. The arsonist. The arsonists were all silenced, and this matter has been buried for years with no way to investigate now. Ninga, I have long since let go of this matter. You need not trouble her at every turn. My affection for her was always my own affair. My mind suddenly went blank. The sheer volume of information was overwhelming, leaving me momentarily unable to process it all. In other words, Jiyu Ning targeted me at every turn because his elder brother had lost both legs while saving me. Was it Jiyu Yu who saved me back then at the villa, not His Highness the Crown Prince? And also, does Jiyu Yu have feelings for me? Ninga, are you listening? Jiyu Yu looked at me puzzled when I didn't respond for a long time. I nodded slightly. "Oh, okay, I understand." He waved his hand. "Never mind. Here's some wound medicine, take it. Let me walk you back." He took a medicine bottle from his sleeve, pressed it into my hand, then turned his wheelchair and moved away. I followed behind him at a loss. Should I push him? Does Jiyu Ning usually push him? Judging by her usual spoiled demeanor and the way she changes when mentioning her elder brother, they must be very close. I should probably push him. I reached out and placed my hands on the wheelchair, pushing him forward. His body stiffened slightly, but then he proceeded to point out the scenery and routes around the estate as we moved along. I made a mental note of everything. After all, I had stumbled into his courtyard by accident today. I couldn't afford to get lost every time. Watching his retreating figure, my heart felt heavy until my death in my past life. I never knew he was the one who saved me. No wonder Jiyu Ning always looked at me with such resentment, as if I were a heartless scoundrel. Yet I have no memory of ever meeting Jiyu Yu, nor do I recall knowing him in my past life. It's hard to imagine how helpless such a stunningly beautiful man must have felt at the peak of his youth and vigor when he lost his legs and became confined to this secluded courtyard in his past life. How utterly desperate he must have been upon receiving the news of his sister's execution. So it turns out that in my past life, I truly was as blind as Jiyu Ning had cursed me to be, to mistake fish eyes for pearls and give my heart to the wrong person. No wonder I met such a wretched end. Jiyu Yu escorted me to the courtyard gate but did not enter. After thanking him, I was about to enter when his voice came from behind. "The Eastern Palace is treacherous and not suited for you, if you're unwilling. I'll spare no effort to protect you, Jiyu Ning." "Oh Jiyu Ning, at this moment I truly can't help but envy you." I turned around and smiled faintly. "Rest assured, elder brother, I have my own ways to handle it. Having been reborn, I won't walk the same path again. However, what's owed to me must be repaid, every last bit of it." He stared at me blankly, lost in thought for a long while, before finally sighing and wheeling himself away. For several days, to avoid giving myself away, I stayed holed up in the courtyard until a maid came to announce that Miss Tang had invited me to admire flowers. When I heard the message, I was drinking tea and nearly choked to death. Did Jiyu Ning have any idea what she was doing? Everyone in the capital knew we couldn't stand each other. An invitation to admire flowers was about as believable as a challenge to a duel, but since Ji Ning requested a meeting at this time, there must be something important. After tidying up, I headed to the Duke of Angua's residence. Ironically, this was my first time returning to my own home as the Duke's daughter while feeling like a thief. After all, I had once issued the order, Ji Ning and dogs are forbidden to enter. Skillfully avoiding the guards, I returned to my own courtyard. Ji Ning was lying half dead on the soft couch at this moment, but perked up when she saw me enter. Tang Yu, switch back. We must switch back. Aren't you supposed to be a refined young lady? How come your father trained you like taming a falcon? I almost didn't live to see today's sun. How could I have forgotten this matter? I am the only legitimate daughter of Duke Angua's household, with military power in our grasp but no heir to inherit it. My father resolved to raise me as both cultured and martial, a refined lady in public, a warrior behind closed doors. Alas, while I mastered all 4 arts of zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, I never developed the slightest interest in martial training. That's why in my past life, I threw myself entirely at the Crown Prince, fighting tooth and nail for that Eastern Palace position. Looking back now, being a man's accessory could never compare to holding power myself. Ji Ning, your brother's leg, I'm sorry. Though I didn't want to bow my head before her, Ji after all, was someone I owed. She looked at me in horror. Tang Yu, you're not planning to cause trouble again, are you? Let me tell you, I'm not afraid of you. At worst, we'll perish together. I burst out laughing. Ji Ning, try getting out of bed first before challenging me, that'd be more convincing. Didn't you vow to become a female general since childhood? What, surrendering after just 3 days? She snorted coldly. None of your business. I don't know how your father, a mere martial artist, raised you to be such a scheming wasp's nest. Could it be you've used all those tricks of yours on me? Well, coming back to life seems to have given you a new brain. You've gotten smarter. I couldn't resist teasing her, rare as it was to see her frustrated. Without waiting for her reply, I shifted the topic. No matter how much you dislike or hate me, at least in this life, we share a common enemy. About your elder brother's matter, I only learned of it after switching identities with you and going to the GU residence. In our past life, I was unaware. GU Ning listened with a cold laugh. In my past life, I clearly sent you several letters. How could you claim ignorance? Impossible. Don't tell me you never received them unless someone deliberately intercepted and concealed them. Someone impersonated GU Yuqing as my savior. Of course they wouldn't let the truth reach me. How pitiful and lamentable my past life was. Yet GU Ning's fate was no less tragic. The Crown Prince was well aware of my long-standing feud with GU Ning, which was precisely why he went to great lengths to bring her into the Eastern Palace. First, to keep us mutually restrained, and second, to reap the benefits while we fought. With honeyed words and cunning schemes, he sowed discord between us, luring us into an irreconcilable conflict. In the end, he seized the military power of the Angua Duke's household, swallowed up all of the GU family's assets, and only then secured his position in the Eastern Palace, paving his way to the throne. Otherwise, with his birth mother long deceased, lacking military support or imperial favor, how could he have competed against the other princes? Without the backing of military power and wealth, his position would surely have left him sleepless at night. GU Ning, since we've swapped identities, how about we play for high stakes? I toyed with the iron token in my hand. GU Ning perked up, straightening her posture. What do you have in mind? If we can't avoid entering the Eastern Palace, then why not? I dipped my finger in tea and wrote 4 characters on the table. Her gaze sharpened. Tang Yu, you're ruthless. We're even. In our past lives, it was a draw between us. Neither gained the upper hand over the other. GU Ning had courage. I had strategy. She was the open spear. I was the hidden arrow. Truly a match of equals. Who would have thought we'd join forces in this second life? With awkward insistence, she kept emphasizing that once this matter was settled, we'd settle our score once and for all. I nodded in agreement. After all, she'd suffered more losses at my hands than meals she'd eaten. Back at the GU residence, after much hesitation, I still went to GU's courtyard. He seemed surprised to see me. Your leg. I hesitated, unsure how to begin. He smiled faintly. It doesn't hurt anymore. I stepped forward and crouched down. Can I take a look at your leg? He didn't respond, but I knew this request was undoubtedly reopening old wounds. But in my past life, not knowing was one thing. Now that I've been given this second chance, I don't want any regrets. Even if there's the slightest hope, I want to try. Just as I was about to stand up, he relented. All right, He gently lifted his robe and rolled up his pant legs. His legs had atrophied somewhat from prolonged inactivity. Or perhaps due to his gradual weight loss, they appeared gaunt and bony. I reached out and touched his joints. They hadn't been set properly during the bone setting, causing misalignment that prevented the wounds from healing properly and left him immobile. Judging by the injury, whenever the weather turns cold, the pain would surely make it hard to sleep. Was it Imperial Physician Cheen from the Imperial Hospital who set your bones? I lowered his pant leg and straightened his robe. His gaze flickered slightly as he nodded. It was him. I sneered inwardly. What an elaborate scheme this was. So early on, the Crown Prince had already set his sights on the GU residence. It's fine, I'm used to it. Seeing my grave expression, he deliberately spoke lightly to ease the tension. How could anyone get used to this? I'd heard long ago that the peerless young master was accomplished in both literary and martial arts, a man of celestial beauty who excelled at horseback riding and archery alike. How could such a vibrant, spirited person, confined to a wheelchair all day, trapped within these four walls, ever grow accustomed to it? I will definitely cure your legs, believe me, I declared firmly. He didn't question me, just gazed steadily into my eyes. I believe you. My heart suddenly skipped half a beat. For a moment, I wondered if he had seen through me, but then I thought it was unlikely. After all, body swapping was too fantastical to believe. Even if he noticed something off about me, he'd probably just assume I'd been through some kind of shock. After that day, I started finding ways to nourish him with medicinal food to regulate his health. I even had the guards learn massage techniques to relax his muscles and improve circulation, before treating his illness. We had to lay a solid foundation. Additionally, I took over all the accounting for the GU household. 1,000-mile dike collapses because of an ant hole. Since the Crown Prince had long set his sights on the GU residence, there must already be his people planted within. Now, whether GU Ning and I can switch back remains uncertain, but even if only to repay GUU's life-saving grace, I am determined to protect the GU family at all costs. GUU. Do you still think you're the peerless young master of the past? Before, you refused to hand over the household authority, and now you actually let GU Ning, a mere girl, manage the GU residence. Do you think there's no one else in the GU family besides you two siblings? Exactly, GUU. You're already a useless person. People, you have to learn to accept your fate. As I passed by GUU's courtyard with the account book in hand, I happened to overhear these words. Needless to say, the illegitimate sons and daughters of the GU family were up to their usual mischief again. During this time, to avoid giving myself away, I secretly familiarized myself with the relationships and dynamics within the household. Ever since GUU lost his leg, these people had been nothing but trouble for them. GUU is a gentleman through and through, but I'm certainly not. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Well said. Sometimes, people really ought to accept their fate. As I entered, a few people cast disdainful glances my way. GU Ning, since you agree as well, hand over the ledger and the warehouse keys obediently. This main courtyard, you should move out as soon as possible. The GU family doesn't support idlers. The house at the Western Estate is sitting empty, which is a waste. It would suit you perfectly to live there. GUU turned his wheelchair to block my path. Ninga, go back inside first. Leave this to me. I pushed GUU into the nearby pavilion, sat him down, and poured him a cup of tea before turning my gaze to the two illegitimate sons and one illegitimate daughter of the GU household. Since you've all declared your resignation to fate, then you ought to properly fulfill your roles as concubine-born children. The GU manor indeed cannot afford to support idlers. If you consider the vacant houses in the western suburbs such a waste, then pack your belongings and move there immediately. The moment I finished speaking, their expressions instantly darkened. GU Ning, do you even realize what you're saying? Without us, do you really think you and your brother can hold up the GU family by yourselves? Ning GU, I'm now in charge of several GU family shops. I flipped the ledger to a certain page and showed it to them. The steward has already been sent to the authorities. You can choose for yourselves whether to go to the estate or be handed over to the officials. GU had difficulty walking, and GU Ning was not skilled in business. Usually, it was the steward who managed all the family's enterprises, while several illegitimate sons and daughters took advantage of the chaos to profit from their positions. GU might have been aware, but to make life easier for GU Ning, he might have chosen to turn a blind eye, but I would not tolerate it. A family must work together in unity. Personal interests may exist, but they must never outweigh the interests of the family. Otherwise, the enemy need only tempt them with benefits, and such people would become sharp blades turned against their own kin. in my past life, I never knew if it was their defection to the crown prince that led the GU family to such ruin, but I've always preferred to take precautions before it's too late. Clearly, none of them expected me to take such swift and decisive action, restructuring the GU family, uncovering accounting irregularities, and securing leverage over them. Faced with irrefutable evidence, their arrogance crumbled, and they ultimately chose to retreat to the estate, slinking away in disgrace. I calmly put away the account books. In my past life, the Crown Prince had entrusted me with managing the entire Eastern Palace just to make me happy. What kind of storms hadn't I weathered? A mere GU residence was child's play. When I looked up and met GU's smiling eyes, it finally dawned on me, GU Ning couldn't read account books. Had I just blown my cover? How should I explain this? How could I make sure he wouldn't suspect me? Whatever Ninga does, your elder brother will support you. No explanations needed. He didn't probe further. Just as when he learned I'd asked the steward for account books without questioning, he immediately had them packed and sent to me. GU Ning was truly fortunate to have an elder brother who trusted her so completely. After exchanging a few routine pleasantries with him, I rose to return to my own courtyard. The scheme you're pursuing is far too perilous. You must exercise extreme caution. The voice coming from behind made me stop in my tracks. I had to admit, GU was truly remarkable. Even confined to the estate, he could perceive the finest details. I couldn't shake the illusion. Were those words meant for GU Ning, or for me? Without turning around, I replied, "Thank you for your concern, elder brother." Back in my room, I pulled a letter from my sleeve. The news came from the palace. After reading the letter, I burned it by candlelight. It seems the actions GU Ning and I took that day weren't in vain. At least the Crown Prince has already drawn dissatisfaction from His Majesty. GU Ning and I deliberately tarnished our own reputations, even going so far as to say such things. Yet the Crown Prince still insisted on bringing us into the Eastern Palace. His ambitions couldn't be clearer. How could the Emperor tolerate others coveting his throne? His Majesty is still in good health. Yet the Crown Prince can't wait to seize military power and amass wealth. One might even say he's plotting rebellion. The Crown Prince was too hasty and underestimated the Emperor's suspicion. If things had followed the previous life's course, where GU Ning and I were chosen for the Eastern Palace out of admiration for the Crown Prince or by standing out among the noble ladies, perhaps the Crown Prince's intentions wouldn't have been so obvious. No wonder the Crown Prince, though clearly intending to bring GU Ning and me into the Eastern Palace, delayed taking action. That works out well, giving us plenty of time. A few days later, I arranged to meet GU Ning at a tea house. She slipped stealthily into the private room wearing a veil hat. Just as you predicted, the Crown Prince did request to see me. She removed her veil hat and tossed a letter onto the table with utter disdain. I could understand her feelings. After all, a man saying the same words and making the same promises to two women simultaneously was truly more disgusting than swallowing a fly. Earlier, I misunderstood you. She cleared her throat awkwardly before speaking those stiff words. I knew it must be the Crown Prince who had brought up old matters before her again, mentioning how he saved me from the fire. The Crown Prince thought bringing this up would make me utterly devoted to him. Little did he know that GU Ning and I had switched identities, which coincidentally cleared her misunderstanding of me. For some reason, she glared at me with gritted teeth. He actually had the nerve to ask me to beg my father, no, your father, for an imperial marriage decree. If not for the bigger picture, I would have slapped him right then and there. I couldn't help but find it somewhat amusing. Truth be told, I absolutely believe she's capable of doing such a thing. After all, she was none other than consort GU, who once single-handedly took on all the Crown Prince's favored concubines in the Eastern Palace and fought her way through bloodshed. With His Majesty backing her and the Crown Prince still needing the GU family's support, those concubines could only seethe in silent fury, eventually bringing their complaints all the way to me. No matter how many schemes the inner courtyard devised, none could withstand her sheer audacity. She had both the fierceness and the capital to be unruly. "How is Prince Ning doing?" I poured her a cup of tea, signaling her to calm down. Only then did she start discussing serious matters with me, recounting the progress on her end. I also shared the recent developments at the GU residence with her, exchanging information. Who would have thought that after I finished speaking, she would look at me with a meaningful expression? "Tang Yu. Sometimes I truly admire your intelligence, but this time you seem to have outsmarted yourself." Before I could respond, she continued, "First, ever since my elder brother lost his legs saving you, I've never treated him kindly, nor have I ever called him brother. Second, when the GU family was swallowed by the Crown Prince back then, It wasn't because of those insignificant clowns. The money they embezzled was merely a drop in the bucket for the GU family. My brother always knew, though he couldn't move freely, the GU family never slipped from his control. My brother willingly offered all the family's assets to the Crown Prince on one condition: to spare your life and mine, but he overestimated the Crown Prince's integrity. Who would have thought the moment the Crown Prince ascended the throne, he'd immediately go back on his word and eliminate us root and branch? I massaged my forehead. Why didn't you say so earlier? Gu Ning shrugged. You didn't ask anything else. Spit it all out at once, I said, steadying my emotions. Truly a lifelong rival who knows exactly how to infuriate me. She suddenly looked at me with a faint, ambiguous smile. I had a bad feeling about this. Tang Yu, if I'm not mistaken, you were exposed on the very first day, with my elder brother's intelligence. Stop, enough. I heard the truth I least wanted to accept. Indeed, my premonition was right. Gu Ning noticed my embarrassment and gloated. Tang Yu, you look utterly pathetic right now. As for Gu Yu, I truly don't know how to face him while wearing his sister's face. The thought of how much he sacrificed for me in our past life, while I remained oblivious, letting this pearl be buried in dust and endure endless humiliation, makes my heart ache with regret. Returning to the GU residence, I went straight to the small kitchen and personally prepared GU's medicine. Counting the days, Dr. Mo should have received the message and would soon arrive in the capital. As usual, I continued making secret arrangements while tending to GU's health. Since GU hadn't brought it up, there was no need for me to pierce that thin layer of paper between us. Another half-month passed before the Crown Prince finally couldn't hold back any longer. He sent someone to discreetly escort me through a side gate into the Eastern Palace. Returning to the Eastern Palace once more, I caught sight of a familiar figure. It was none other than that palace maid who had usurped the Empress's position in my past life. So, the Crown Prince had long been keeping her hidden in the Eastern Palace, a golden house for his fair lady, while Gu Ning and I became her shields and living targets. Noticing my gaze upon her, she timidly bowed in greeting. No one would ever guess she was the most deeply concealed one of all. In her previous life, she must have been quite pleased watching the tigers fight from the safety of the shadows. What's your name? I stopped in front of her. She knelt down in panic. This lowly servant is Choi. Greeting Miss Gu. I nodded slightly. A fine name, and your features are quite striking too. She trembled in fear. This lowly servant, since Miss Gu has arrived, why not come in? Hearing the voice, the Crown Prince walked over with an inscrutable expression. I chuckled lightly. The Crown Prince's Eastern Palace is indeed a den of hidden talents. Even a palace maid is so strikingly beautiful. I wonder if your highness would be willing to part with her if I were to ask. The smile he had mustered froze on his face as his gaze followed mine. However, he quickly regained his composure, feigning anger and scolding. You blind wench, can't you see I'm speaking with Miss Gu? Now get out. Chiu Yi bowed her head and retreated. The Crown Prince gestured for us to speak inside, and I followed him in with my head down. Ninga, no one will disturb us now. The Crown Prince dismissed everyone and leaned closer to me, feigning intimacy. I subtly avoided his touch. Your Highness has always favored Tang Yu. Has he not? Why come to provoke me now? His expression turned cold as I struck a nerve. After all the effort I spent saving her, she proved ungrateful, secretly growing close to Prince Ning behind my back. How could such a fickle woman ever be worthy of the Eastern Palace? My grip tightened around the handkerchief. Deep breaths, steady now. The greater good comes first. I'll save this slap for later, affecting tenderness. He moved closer and wrapped an arm around my waist. Ninga, haven't you always wanted to outshine her? As Crown Princess, even if she marries into Prince Ning's household, she'll have to bow properly when she sees you. I quietly avoided his hand, lowering my eyes with a cold smile. In my past life, this was exactly how he played me and Gu Ning against each other. Your Highness, what would you have me do? I feigned hesitation. He stepped forward and took my hand. If Ninga and I have already become intimate, even if the Emperor finds out, he won't blame us. Would Ninga be willing? So he didn't dare do it openly and was resorting to underhanded tactics. I narrowed my eyes, my gaze falling on the incense burner nearby. They really dare to use any dirty trick. Your Highness, I feel so dizzy. I staggered a few steps, holding my head as I collapsed to the side. He caught me smoothly. Gu Ning, be obedient and perhaps I'll be gentle. You can't escape. Thud. As soon as he finished speaking, a blunt strike hit him squarely. I looked at the newcomer and couldn't help but rub my forehead. What if she went too far and killed him? Gu Ning, dressed in palace-maid attire, disdainfully kicked the unconscious crown prince on the ground while carrying a wooden staff. What kind of trash is this? Last life I fell for your tricks, but you dare try again this time. Tang you, go back and scrub my body thoroughly 3 times. No, 5 times. The corner of my mouth twitched. 5 times. That'd scrub her skin raw. Just how much did she despise him? Seeing Ji Yuning still wanting to step forward and kick a few more times, I quickly stopped her. We have more important matters to attend to. Earlier, I deliberately struck up a conversation with Choi to catch the crown prince's attention, all to make it easier for Ji Yuning to sneak into the hall and replace the incense. In our past life, Ji Yuning had originally promised her brother not to enter the Eastern Palace and compete with me. Who would have thought the crown prince would resort to such methods, forcing her to enter the Eastern Palace against her will? Fortunately, Ji Yuning had warned me beforehand, or else I would have been the one falling into the trap today. Together with Ji Yuning, we carried him onto the bed, then lit the incense. The crown prince had deliberately chosen today, when His Majesty left the palace to worship at Shungan Temple, to carry out his plan. He even dismissed the guards, which conveniently worked in our favor. Not long after we slipped out of the palace, His Majesty's imperial carriage arrived at the palace gates. I'd love to go back in and watch the show, Ji Yuning said with some regret. I can understand how she feels. After all, the satisfaction of being alive to exact revenge does feel rather good. However, now is not the time for complacency. We must prepare in advance for the enemy's counterattack. The crown prince has suffered a major setback at my hands this time, and he certainly won't let it go at that. We must find his Achilles heel and leave him with no possibility of recovery. That day, news came from the palace that the crown prince had defiled the imperial harem and failed in moral conduct. As punishment, he was ordered to surrender his princely seal and placed under house arrest in the Eastern Palace to reflect on his mistakes. The crown prince was not deposed, but I wasn't the least bit surprised. For one thing, the nature of the prince's offense wasn't particularly grave nor trivial. It all depended on how His Majesty chose to define it. For another, compared to the isolated crown prince, His Majesty was even more reluctant to appoint any other princes with powerful backings as heir apparent. The imperial family knows no affection. Even between father and son, there is mutual wariness. In comparison, the crown prince is easier to control. As long as the crown prince has no troops to command and no one to rely on, he becomes a living target in the struggle for imperial power. Allowing His Majesty to sit securely on the throne until his dying day, no matter even if a mayfly shakes a tree, there will come a day when the great tree falls. One day, I will make him kneel before us. Half a month later, Physician Mo finally arrived at the GU residence. With my introduction, he carefully examined GU. Truly, a quack doctor has caused such harm. A misaligned bone setting, turning a perfectly healthy person into a cripple. This leg is not difficult to treat, but the process will be somewhat painful. Dr. Mo was furious, but fortunately it was just as I had expected. GU finally breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing Dr. Mo's words. As long as I can stand up again, I'm not afraid of any hardship. Dr. Mo explained everything to us in detail, set the treatment schedule, and then stayed at the mansion. Seeing the light return to GU's eyes, I felt slightly relieved. Thankfully, everything was still within reach. Dr. Mo was my advisor in my past life. Originally a wanderer, I met him during my childhood travels with my father. Later, when I entered the Eastern Palace, my father, fearing I might fall victim to palace intrigues, invited him to become my personal physician. Upon learning of GU's condition, he was the first person I thought of. Ninga, thank you. GU's gaze burned intensely. I responded flusteredly before finding an excuse to leave his courtyard. Not long after walking away, I saw Physician Mo already waiting at the lakeside pavilion. Girl, what's going on with you? Physician Mo circled around me again and again. I pouted my lips. It's exactly what you see. Is there any way to switch back? Dr. Mo clicked his tongue repeatedly, marveling at how the world is full of wonders. Girl, this is your fate. I may be skilled at healing bodies, but not souls. Perhaps what you lack is a catalyst. 5 days later, Dr. Mo began treating GU. Standing in his courtyard, I stared at the tightly shut door, the conversation with Dr. Mo from that day echoing in my mind. How confident are you that GU's leg can be completely healed? 50%. Only 50%. Half depends on medical skill, half on his own willpower. The treatment itself isn't difficult. What's hard is enduring the pain of having his bones broken again. Not everyone can bear that. Think carefully. If he can't endure it, he might suffer for nothing. Should we proceed with the treatment? He will persevere. Gu, you must stand up again, return to being that unrestrained and brilliant peerless young master, to shine and radiate. Young mistress, it's terrible. Something major has happened. The gatekeeper rushed in frantically, and I raised my hand to signal him to be silent. He then instructed the servants to guard Gu's courtyard before following the gatekeeper outside, inquiring about the details along the way. There are soldiers surrounding the Gu residence, claiming the Gu family is suspected of circulating counterfeit money and demanding immediate arrest, the gatekeeper said with visible anxiety. I gave a slight nod and ordered him to bring several guards to accompany me to the main gate. Counting the days, the Crown Prince's confinement had been lifted. At the entrance of the Gu residence, the Crown Prince and Prince Ning rode side by side. Seeing me come out, the Crown Prince immediately ordered my arrest. Your Highness, on what grounds do you arrest me? I stood calmly before the mansion gates, unperturbed. The Crown Prince's eyes no longer held their previous false warmth. Hearing my question, he sneered. The Gu family has privately minted counterfeit coins, endangering the state. By law, you deserve execution. What proof do you have? I spoke unhurriedly. Proof. These counterfeit coins in the people's hands all flowed from your Gu family's money exchange. What more do you have to say? Guards, seize him. With a wave of the Crown Prince's hand, the soldiers immediately closed in on me. Gu Ning, I advise you to surrender quietly, otherwise. Steel knows no master, whether you live or die matters not. Miss Gu, my apologies. Prince Ning gave a slight nod. What unfortunate timing, just recently. I happened to intercept quite an interesting letter. It bore a distinctive lotus mark and carried an official seal. I wonder if His Majesty should see it. I produced a letter, looking provocatively at the Crown Prince. He raised his hand, stopping the approaching guards. Prince Ning grew intrigued. Miss Gu, why not entrust that letter in your hand to me? I'd be happy to deliver it for you. Such trivial matters shouldn't trouble Your Highness Prince Ning, don't you agree? Your Highness the Crown Prince. My words carried hidden meaning. The Crown Prince's face turned ashen as he dismounted and strode toward me. I deliberately revealed just a corner of the letter, enough to clearly show the official seal. The Crown Prince narrowed his eyes dangerously. Gu Ning, what exactly do you want? Withdraw your troops and clear the Gu family's name, or we'll perish together, mutual destruction. I replied with a faint smile at the corner of my lips. Meeting his gloomy gaze without a trace of fear, after a long stare down, he snorted coldly, turned on his heel, and withdrew his soldiers. When Gu Ning arrived after hearing the news, the surrounding crowd had already dispersed. Tang Yu, what on earth are you doing? If you don't care about your own life, don't drag the Gu family down with you. Gu Ning was a little angry that I hadn't informed her immediately. It was a trivial matter, already resolved, I said. Handing her the letter in my hand, she stared at me with an indescribable expression, taking a long moment before finally speaking. Tang Yu, falling into your hands in my past life was already you showing mercy, but at the brink of life and death, you actually resorted to deception. All's fair in war, especially when he couldn't afford to gamble, I replied, taking back the letter and calmly tucking it away. I was just preparing for the worst. Last time in the Eastern Palace, while the Crown Prince was knocked unconscious, I took the opportunity to stamp his seal on a blank sheet of paper. With this paper in hand, whether it's shady dealings or treasonous acts, it all depends on how I choose to write it, even if the flaws are numerous. Once the seed of suspicion is planted in an emperor's mind, it becomes difficult to eradicate. Moreover, the Crown Prince's current situation is precarious and can no longer withstand the emperor's doubts. It is precisely because the Crown Prince understands this that he dares not gamble. In my past life, when I was in charge of the Eastern Palace, I often entered his study and accidentally came across his private letters. I once went out of my way to study his habits and imitate his handwriting just to please him. Never thought it would come in handy today. If only I'd forged a few more copies, we could have pinned all those trumped-up charges on him. Gu Ning seethed with resentment. Seeing Gu Ning's lingering fear, I shook my head. Overuse would backfire. This can only make him think twice, not control him completely. Once he snaps out of it, these become worthless scraps of paper. Her eyes suddenly lit up as she understood the implication. Perhaps we could, while talking. We had already arrived at Gu's courtyard. Dr. Mo opened the door and came out. The treatment went smoothly, but he's fallen asleep. You can go in and see him. Gu Ning was about to dash inside when she suddenly remembered she currently looked like me. Hesitating as she turned her gaze toward me, I gave her a slight nod, and she darted into the room like a wisp of smoke. When I entered, Ji Ning stood there with red-rimmed eyes, gazing at Ji Yu's pale, lifeless face as he lay quietly asleep. Tang Yu, 3 years ago when he saved you. A falling beam crushed both his legs. When the servants found him, he was still shielding you beneath his body. Back then, he also lay unconscious like this, without a trace of life, for 3 days and nights. When he finally woke up, you were already parading about arm in arm with the Crown Prince. At that time, I hated you so much. How could my brother sacrifice so much for someone as vain and status-seeking as you, when you couldn't even bother to visit him once? So I opposed you at every turn, competing and snatching away whatever you wanted to do. I wanted to trample you from your lofty branch into the mud, to make my elder brother stop feeling inferior about his crippled legs and dare to fight for himself just once. But he refused. I opened my mouth, but sentimental words wouldn't come out. Had I known about this from the beginning, would the ending have been different? The answer is no. Without the trials of that lifetime, this version of me and Ji Ning wouldn't have lived with such clarity. We might still have been lost in the vortex of power and desire. It's precisely because we've experienced so much that we could transcend beyond it all, realizing how empty fame and fortune truly are. This understanding makes us cherish what we have all the more, and strive to make up for past regrets. Life seemed to return to calm, and under Physician Mo's care, Ji Yu gradually recovered day by day. In just half a month, he could barely stand, though only for a few minutes. Yet to him, it was nothing short of rebirth. The situation in Kyoto grew increasingly tense. Ever since I had Ji Ning secretly assist Prince Ning, the prince had been restraining the Crown Prince at every turn, plunging the latter's days into deeper turmoil. I held my brush, gazing at the gloomy sky outside the window, and only after a long while did I finally set ink to paper. The wind howls through the tower as a storm looms. Perhaps it's time to draw the net closed. Just as the Crown Prince and Prince Ning were about to determine the victor, His Majesty suddenly issued an edict, deposing the Crown Prince and sentencing him to lifelong imprisonment in the imperial clan court. The youngest son, the 7th prince, was named the new heir, shocking the entire court in an instant. The Crown Prince, unwilling to accept this, caused a scene in the Golden Swan Hall. The emperor threw a memorial in front of him, leaving him dumbfounded. No one could have imagined that he would be ruined by a mere palace maid. Tang Yu, you're absolutely brilliant. How did you know Chui was a remnant of the previous dynasty? Now, with both witnesses and evidence in place, the Crown Prince has no chance of turning the tables. Ji Ningfeng rushed over, full of excitement, to share the news with me. I was holding scissors, trimming flower branches, in my previous life. The Crown Prince kept Chui hidden so deeply that Ji Ning and I were too busy fighting each other to even notice such a person by his side. I was already very interested in this woman in my previous life. Now that I've been reborn, I naturally dug deeper, and this digging actually unearthed a surprise. Ji Ning stroked her chin, utterly perplexed. The Crown Prince's side is one thing, but how did you predict that Prince Ning would also be out of the running? And that His Majesty would definitely choose the 7th prince? Extremes meet, I said as I plucked the most vibrant bloom from the branch and casually handed it to her. The more power Prince Ning gained, the less likely His Majesty would make him Crown Prince. A strong maternal clan always carries the risk of interference in state affairs by relatives of the Empress. His Majesty had only ever regarded him as a pawn to counterbalance the Crown Prince, never truly considering him for succession. I had Ji Ning feign friendship with him, forcing His Majesty to burn his bridges and quickly select the candidate least likely to threaten the throne. Thus, the young and lowborn 7th prince became his best choice. First, being still young and lacking developed influence, he wouldn't be eager to ascend the throne. Second, the 7th prince's mother was an unfavored consort from a scholarly family without noble connections, making him incapable of stirring trouble even as Crown Prince. Finally, the 7th prince was inherently outstanding. It was merely his young age that had previously excluded him from contention. Just as Ji Ning and I were preparing to devise a way to switch back to our own bodies, an unexpected turn of events occurred. I was jolted awake by a splash of cold water, only to find myself imprisoned in a dungeon. The former Crown Prince stood before me, a vicious sneer on his face as he gripped a whip. Ji Ning, long time no see, he sneered as he moved closer to me. I wiped the water from my face and stood up, leaning against the wall. Your Highness, how pitiful you look. Instead of getting angry, he laughed. I used to think you were just a brainless woman who loved to compete. It seems I underestimated you. If your Highness had no intention of exploitation, how could you suffer such backlash? I sneered at him. He flicked his long whip. This prince truly doesn't know what grievance exists between us that would drive you to harm me so, your highness. How can you be sure this isn't just karma coming full circle? I let out a light laugh. In our past life, he climbed to power by stepping over the bones of me and Ji Ning. He seized my father's military power and caused him to be exiled 1,000 miles away. He swallowed all the Ji family's private assets, leaving Ji bereft of his sister and homeless. Each and every one of these grievances, which does not demand repayment in blood, nearly deranged, he lunged forward and gripped my throat. Ji Ning, never thought I'd escape, did you? I told you long ago you'll never slip from my grasp. I gasped in pain as I grabbed his hand that was choking my neck. Your highness should be thanking me for helping you escape. His gaze suddenly sharpened, and the pressure on my neck loosened. What do you mean? Panting heavily, I said. Didn't your highness notice how suspiciously smooth your escape was, if you hadn't fled? How could they have framed you for fleeing the crime and left your corpse in the wilderness? His face darkened terrifyingly, his eyes gleaming like a venomous snake. Ji Ning, I fell into your trap again. What exactly do you want? Yes, I plotted against you before, but you didn't fall for it. Did you? Why do you hate me so much? I covered my mouth and let out a soft laugh. Because, I'm Tang Yu. His eyes widened in disbelief. How is this possible? How is it not possible? Your highness can play me and Ji Ning against each other, so why can't we make you dance to our tune? I looked at him with a half smile, like a cat toying with a mouse, watching his desperate struggle. No wonder, what a fine pair you two Jingcheng twin jewels make. Tang Yu, even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. He threw aside the whip, drew a dagger, and advanced toward me. Ji Ning, had enough of the show, get out here already. I quickly shouted. Tang Yu, do you dare to make a move or not? My legs are numb from squatting. If you can't do it, I will. Ji Ning crouched on the rooftop with her arms crossed, then leaped down in a single bound. Her entrance was quite dramatic, it's just that her landing posture was a bit hard to watch. The corner of my mouth twitched. My father's most dashing move had been utterly ruined by her. If you'd come any later, you could have just collected my corpse. We'd laid the trap in advance, just waiting for that bastard to take the bait. Yet she insisted on making her grand entrance at the very last moment. She grinned. Heroes always make their entrance at the last moment. Aren't you touched? Don't move. One wrong move and you're dead. Seeing the situation turn dire, the former crown prince knelt down. I bear you no grudge, couldn't you show mercy and let me go? Ji Ning and I exchanged knowing smiles. Oh, the grudge runs deep, with grievances spanning past lives and this one. He deserves death 100 times over. Seeing our refusal to relent, he suddenly lunged forward and seized me. Don't come any closer, or I'll kill her. I glanced at Ji Ning and shook my head slightly. If you don't kill the snake, it will bite back. If the crown prince doesn't die here today, it will bring endless trouble in the future. I tightened my grip on the hairpin hidden in my sleeve. I only had one chance. I had to strike him down with a single move. Ji Ning suddenly laughed. Go ahead, do it. Everyone in the capital knows she and I are sworn enemies. What could be more delightful than seeing your nemesis dead? Why isn't your highness making a move? Need my help? Wait, letting her die like this would be too merciful. Let's stab her 8 or 10 times first, make her beg for death while suffering unbearable pain. The former crown prince couldn't help but curse under his breath. What a madman. Seizing the moment, I reversed my hairpin and thrust it toward his neck. At the same instant, Ji Ning drew her sword and flashed past his side with lightning speed. The former crown prince's dagger clattered to the ground as he clutched his throat, eyes wide with shock. You. Before he could finish speaking, he collapsed heavily to the floor. A hairpin protruded diagonally from one side of his neck, while a single sword stroke had sealed his throat on the other. I took a deep breath and exchanged a triumphant smile with Ji Ning. We'd finally done it, ensured he would never ascend the throne. The former crown prince fled, which was already punishable by death according to the law. Now that his corpse lies exposed in the wilderness, it can be said he met his deserved end. At dawn the next day, as the first rays of sunlight spilled through the window, I rose and stared blankly at the familiar surroundings, gazing at the reflection in the dressing mirror. I had returned. Sweetheart, the sun is already high. Didn't we agree to practice swordplay today? Still not up. My father barged in, sword in hand. Kicking the door open, I stared at him, unable to snap out of my daze for the longest time. Suddenly, I rushed forward and threw myself into his arms. Father, I've missed you so much. He scowled. Out with it, were you just trying to slack off? His face lit up as he patted my head. It's good that you've come around. Son, what's so great about the capital anyway? When we returned to the frontier, I'll hold a martial contest to find you a spouse guaranteed to be 1,000 times better than any of those pampered nobles. All right, I'll listen to father, I burst out laughing. The desert eagle was never meant to be confined to this small world. Becoming a casualty in the struggle for imperial power, in this lifetime, I only wish to stay away from conflicts and love those dear to me. A few days later, father surrendered his military authority and, despite the emperor's repeated attempts to persuade him to stay, insisted on retiring to seclusion. The last trace of worry in His Majesty's heart dissipated with his father's resignation, who was then granted the title of General Jinyuan and returned to the frontier. By the time Guu reappeared, he could already walk perfectly well. He sincerely thanked me and boldly expressed his feelings, but I refused. He was a peerless gentleman, radiant as sunshine after rain, destined to be matched with the brightest moon. While I had my own world to inhabit, we simply weren't meant for each other. When I left the capital, I didn't tell anyone, but Jiyu Ning caught up with me. Tang Yu, how could you be so inconsiderate, leaving without even saying goodbye? Do you think I'm some cheap person you can just discard after using? Jiyu Ning said breathlessly. Looking at her bundles of luggage, I asked, what's all this? She snorted coldly. What, are you the only one allowed to be the female Zhuge Liang of the frontier, while I can't be a female general? Tang Yu, the capital is so dull without you. Dare to have another match? I lowered my brows with a light laugh. Bring it on. Who's afraid of who? Jiyu Ning and I each selected a fine horse, mounted them, exchanged a smile, and with a whinny from the steeds, we dashed forward simultaneously. Given a second chance at life, perhaps we should seek broader horizons, so as not to waste this serendipitous encounter. The second story. I, Xie Xuening, am the only princess under the current emperor's care. Since childhood, I have been the most unrestrained young lady in all of Linen City. Just a few days after my coming-of-age ceremony, my carefree days were suddenly struck by thunder. The emperor issued an edict. I was to be betrothed to Marquis Dingbei, Shen Yingnan. Who is Shen Yingnan? He's none other than the bloodthirsty Yama king rumored to slaughter men like hemp on battlefields, the iron-faced general who makes enemy troops tremble at his very name, and I'm to marry him. Isn't this just like a lamb walking into a tiger's den? What if one day we get into a fight? That place is remote and beyond the reach of authority, and being on his turf, I'm afraid calling for help would be too late. Not even a single strand of his hair could be moved. No chance of winning. I truly don't stand the slightest chance. How could anyone accept this? I absolutely cannot marry such a dangerous stranger I've never even met. He rushed angrily to the outside of the imperial study. There, he saw the crown prince emerging from the grand hall with a sickly pale face. Quickly stepping forward, he grabbed the crown prince's hand and asked urgently, "Brother Crown Prince, what did Father Emperor say?" The crown prince sighed and shook his head helplessly. "Ninga, I've already tried to persuade Father Emperor, but his mind is made up. A monarch's word is not to be taken lightly. There's no room for reversal in this matter now. I'm sorry, Ninga. Your elder brother has done his best. I'll prepare more dowry to compensate you." Even so, I still couldn't bring myself to believe it. I couldn't believe that the father who had cherished me since childhood, holding me in the palm of his hand, would send me away to marry so far from home. I wiped the tears from my face with my hand and sobbed, "I don't believe it. I must ask father face to face. Does he truly have the heart to marry me off to the northern lands?" I had just stepped into the hall. When my father waved me over, motioning for me to come forward and sit beside him, I stood my ground stubbornly, tears welling in my eyes, and with a choked voice, I demanded, "Father, are you truly set on marrying Ninga off to such a distant place? Aren't you afraid that if Ninga leaves this time, we father and daughter may never see each other again in this lifetime?" The emperor dragged his heavy steps to stand before me. He looked at me with a complicated expression, his eyes overflowing with guilt and reluctance. "Ninga, your father is also reluctant to let you go, but what can be done when you were born a daughter of the imperial family? If given the choice, your father would also wish to keep you by his side, so we wouldn't have to go anywhere." Father said the Shun family had guarded the northern stronghold of Dingbei City for many years. Shen Yingnan has now become an indispensable commander for our dynasty. Around Dingbei City still linger multiple tribes like the Western who, all covetously eyeing our dynasty. I married him, first, to manifest the imperial family's benevolence, second, to draw the court closer to him. This was the duty I had carried since birth as a princess of the realm. With tears in his eyes, my father pulled me into his embrace and sobbed, "Do you remember when your mother passed away? I held you in my arms, and you were no bigger than a kitten. Ninga, you are the apple of my eye. And it pains me more than anyone to let you go, but I am not just your father, I am also the father of our people. Do you understand? Father is a good emperor praised by all the people. He diligently attends to state affairs every day, solely to ensure the eternal prosperity of the nation. Seeing the frost at his temples and the plea in his eyes, I could no longer selfishly say no to father. I had no choice but to swallow my grievances and agree to this marriage, on the day of my wedding. The city of Linen was bustling with excitement. The townspeople spontaneously took to the streets, lining the roads to see me off. My father the emperor and my elder brother the crown prince prepared dowry gifts for me according to the highest protocol, fearing that I might struggle to adapt to life in the northern lands, apart from the nurse and maidservants who had raised me since childhood. My imperial father even assigned me the imperial kitchen's chef and the chief physician from the grand hospital. The grand wedding procession stretched as far as the eye could see. The moment the carriage set off, my heart swayed unsteadily along with it. The faces of Father Emperor and Crown Prince brother grew increasingly blurred, finally shrinking to a tiny dot before vanishing behind us. From now on, this bustling city of Linen shall remain but a distant hometown I, Xieshuening, can only glimpse in dreams. The more I dwell on it, the more my heart aches with grievance. The carriage confined a bellyful of resentment. I covered my mouth, unable to hold back my sobs. After leaving Linen City, our group headed northward. This Dingbei city is truly far away. We hurried along the journey for nearly a month. At last, we arrived at the territory of Dingbei City. I was so exhausted that my bones felt like they were about to fall apart, looking around in all directions. All that met the eye was desolation. There were neither the bustling streets of Linen City, nor the vibrant greenery I was familiar with, only endless earthen slopes and swirling dust carried by the wind. I couldn't help but mutter to myself, good heavens, is this even a place fit for human habitation? The wedding procession was stopped at the city gates. After some negotiation with the guards, the captain of the guard came to my carriage. Your Highness, he reported. The Marquis of Northern Peace requests your presence to enter the city on foot with him. I asked in confusion, why is this? Reporting to your Highness, the Marquis said the common people are already lining the streets to welcome you. Your Highness and the Marquis entering the city on foot will better demonstrate the imperial family's virtue of sharing joy with the people. Rubbing my sore waist, I sneered coldly. Throughout the history of our dynasty, there has never been a precedent for a princess to dismount and walk on her wedding day. Summon Shen Yingnan. This princess wants to see what kind of show of force he has prepared. A moment later, a deep voice sounded from outside the carriage. Dingbei Marquis Shen Yingnan has come to request the princess to alight. The maidservant lifted the carriage curtain. Then I saw the man standing like a pine tree beside the carriage. His brows were like broken blades, his pupils frozen as marrow. His raised hand showed distinct knuckles, the tiger's mouth covered with thick calluses. Shen Yingnan was unlike any other man I'd met in Linen City. He carried about him the untamed ferocity and killing aura of a seasoned warrior. Caught off guard, I found myself staring blankly in stunned silence. Noticing my prolonged lack of response, Shen Yingnan frowned slightly and spoke with neither humility nor arrogance. Your Highness, please proceed. I composed myself. Remaining motionless in the carriage, with my reddened, tear-filled eyes fixed upon him, Shen Yingnan, I ask you, how much longer must we walk from here to your residence? It'll take no longer than burning one incense stick. Shen Yingnan lifted his eyelids slightly. At worst, half a shichen. Making me walk for a full shichen in this situation would be worse than killing me. I've had this peculiar trait since childhood. When exhaustion sets in, even petty tempers flare up. I let out a scornful laugh and snapped fiercely. I've traveled for days to get here, and instead of showing sympathy, you expect me to walk for another hour. Shen Yingnan, are you trying to drill me like one of your military recruits? Shen Yingnan glanced at me expressionlessly. He then swept his gaze over the long line of attendants behind me and spoke impatiently. TSK, these imperial princesses are truly pampered. This princess is indeed pampered, what of it? The two remained locked in a stalemate, neither willing to yield first. Dowry attendant Mother Zhong had always understood my temperament well. Seeing the situation, she hurried over to mediate. Marquis, the princess is His Majesty's cherished golden branch and jade leaf, who has never known hardship. After this long and arduous journey, I am truly exhausted. I dare to beg your lordship for your understanding. If your lordship insists on having the princess disembark, perhaps you could carry her into the city yourself. What does your lordship think? Shen Yingnan's brows furrowed into tiny mountain peaks. He looked me up and down, disdainfully muttering the word pampered. With that, He swept me off the carriage in one swift motion. Cradling me around the waist, striding purposefully, he carried me straight toward the city gates. I was startled by his sudden movement. Instinctively, my hands wrapped around his neck. He glanced at my hands and looked at me with a faint smile. Coming to my senses, I quickly withdrew my hands and retorted stubbornly, "It's all your fault. If you hadn't suddenly pulled me, I wouldn't have gotten such a fright." Shen Yingnan remained silent. He abruptly gave a sharp jerk to the arm encircling my waist. Startled, I instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck again. Shen Yingnan flashed a gloating smile. "TSK, what a coward." I rolled my eyes at him in annoyance and punched his chest twice. Rock hard. Not only did I fail to hurt him, but my own hand ended up red and sore. "Damn you, Shen Yingnan, you bastard." He raised an eyebrow, his face full of mockery. "Oh my, how delicate, your hand's already turning red." With my current disadvantage, I'll have to deal with him for now. Shen Yingnan's parents had both passed away. The wedding rituals after entering the mansion were considerably simplified. After sharing the ceremonial nuptial wine with me, Shen Yingnan prepared to take his leave. I grabbed his sleeve abruptly and asked blankly, "Where are you going?" Shen Yingnan, his dark eyes darkened slightly, his tone still indifferent. "I'm going outside to greet the guests who came to the banquet today." After a whole day of running around, I felt sticky all over. Lady Zhong and the maid Lanyu had only just entered the mansion with me today. They were still unfamiliar with all the affairs of the household. Feeling uncomfortable, I twisted my body and commanded him, "This princess feels unwell and wishes to freshen up properly. Go fetch me some hot water." Shen Yingnan gave me an amused glance and chuckled softly. The princess is truly a handful. Having been mocked by him repeatedly, my grievances instantly magnified beyond measure. Unable to hold back, I retorted, "Shen Yingnan, since you look down on me so much, why don't you have the guts to break off the engagement with my father? Do you think this princess wants to come to this wretched place? Exhausted and unwelcome, what's in it for me?" As I spoke, my tears began falling like pearls from a broken string, cascading down uncontrollably. Shen Yingnan panicked for a moment and hastily called for someone to bring hot water. With a hurried "I'll come back later to dine with you," he slipped away like oil on water. In the side chamber, Matron Zhong tirelessly instructed me on numerous matters regarding tonight's events. "Your Highness, I've discreetly sent Lanyu to inquire among the household servants. The Marquis has never kept any concubines or other women by his side, so it seems this will be his first experience with matters between men and women. He looks like such a rough fellow, probably doesn't know how to be gentle. Your Highness mustn't let him have his way. The Marquis is at that vigorous age, what if he gets carried away and hurts the princess?" Nanny Zhong specially dug out several volumes of fire prevention manuals from the dowry chest. She even insisted on earnestly explaining to me the techniques and key points of each volume in detail. In no time, it became so embarrassing it made one blush. Lanyu bashfully covered her ears and ran to wait outside the door. I casually stuffed the booklet back into the matron's arms and said angrily, "Matron, take it away, take it away. This princess refuses to learn such things. Why should this princess learn such things? If anyone needs to learn, it should be Shen Yingnan. If he can't learn how to serve properly, then he can forget about stepping onto this princess's bed." I couldn't stomach the food from the northern regions at all. On top of that, my mind was still preoccupied with what Matron Zhong had told me. I absent-mindedly pushed my chopsticks around. Having barely taken a few bites from the bowl, Shen Yingnan noticed I wasn't touching my food. He proactively served me several dishes and said meaningfully, "Princess, eat more. The delicate appetite of Linen City isn't fashionable here. On the wedding night, the bride didn't get enough to eat. If this gets out, people will laugh at us. Others will say that the mighty Zhenbei Marquisate can't even feed one young woman properly. I can't bear such humiliation, from our first meeting until now. This man hasn't spoken two kind words to me." The anger that the matron had barely managed to soothe earlier flared up again. I slammed my chopsticks down with a clack, my eyes growing slightly hot as I puffed up my cheeks in anger. "This princess can't eat another bite. I'm done." Shen Yingnan clearly hadn't expected me to react so strongly. Realizing his words had been inappropriate, he awkwardly began to speak. "Princess, the northern frontier is nothing like Linen City. I, Shen Yingnan, am a rough man. Marrying me has wronged you. The imperial marriage decree comes from His Majesty's golden words. This marriage I cannot refuse. Nor will I. In my household, there's only a younger sister, Lian, who lacks proper manners. The estate lacks a woman to manage its affairs. If there are any shortcomings today, I beg the princess's forgiveness. From now on, All matters great and small in the household shall be decided by the princess, seeing that I remained silent. His tone softened further. The northern lands suffer from perennial drought, with poor grain harvests. In years of disaster, many commoners go hungry. I simply can't bear to see food go to waste, which is why I spoke hastily. Please don't be angry with me, princess, since the princess is newly arrived in the north. These dishes must not suit your taste. Tomorrow I'll find a chef who can prepare linen cuisine for you. Would that be acceptable? After hearing his explanation, most of my anger had actually subsided, but I still couldn't bring myself to show him a friendly face just yet. In your eyes, Shen Yingnan, is this princess really such a petty person, who needs your fake kindness? This princess has her own chefs. I don't care for yours at all. Shen Yingnan raised an eyebrow and laughed mockingly. Yes. Of course her highness isn't petty at all. Why, the number of attendants you've brought could nearly match one of my vanguard battalions. How utterly detestable this man's words were, still managing to mock me in such a roundabout way. I shot him an annoyed glare and deliberately turned my head away. Refusing to look at him any longer, he took the leftovers from my bowl, devouring them in 2 or 3 ravenous bites. After finishing, he blurted out, "I'm going to bathe first," before turning to enter the side chamber. The sound of splashing water soon came from inside. I sat uneasily on the bed, my heart pounding like a drum. Nanny Zhong and Lan Yu burned incense around the bed, the same kind I often used in the palace, exhausted from days of travel. The familiar scent lulled me into drowsiness. Before Shen Yingnan could emerge, I collapsed onto the bed and sank into a heavy sleep. In my dazed state, I only sensed the mattress dip slightly beside me, as if someone was drawing near. Gazing at the woman sleeping soundly in her stupor, Shen Yingnan couldn't help but feel a surge of irritation. His eyes swept around the surroundings. He noticed his bed was vastly different from usual. The bed curtains were now adorned with many items typically found in a lady's chamber. A faint, delicate fragrance continuously drifted into his nostrils, seeping deep into his heart and lungs. Shen Yingnan took a deep breath, his chest swelling with restless agitation. After tossing and turning for what felt like ages, he still couldn't summon even a shred of drowsiness. To make matters worse, Xie Xuaning beside him was anything but a peaceful sleeper. She kept clinging to him, her inner garments half undone as she fidgeted in her sleep. The snow-white, alluring sight struck Shen Yingnan's eyes directly. He had never been with a woman. The enchanting scenery before him made his blood surge. His Adam's apple bobbed as he couldn't help but swallow hard. The mere thought that tonight would be their wedding night. Shen Yingnan silently admonished himself in his heart. A general on the battlefield certainly couldn't do nothing. So, he pulled the fragrant woman into his arms and murmured softly, "Princess, aren't you planning to consummate the marriage?" Awakened from sweet dreams by the disturbance, I irritably raised my hand and gave a slap, smack. It sounded as if it had struck the man's face. I've always been lax when sleeping. At this moment, he couldn't even be bothered to lift an eyelid. Half asleep, I followed his words. Her tone carried a hint of the haughtiness she once displayed back in the palace. I'm so tired, you handle it yourself." Shen Yingnan's eyes shimmered as he leaned close to my ear, whispering seductively, "My dear wife, since you said so, then your husband shall take the initiative himself." No sooner had the words been spoken than scorching lips pressed close, launching a relentless conquest. The fabric, thin as cicada wings, was instantly torn to shreds, leaving nothing between them. A pair of large, calloused hands wandered recklessly over my body, fanning the flames. It made me tremble uncontrollably, and I couldn't help but let out soft whimpers from time to time. Shen Yingnan truly was as the matron had described. He's just a clueless greenhorn who doesn't understand anything. In no time, he brandished his weapon with unwavering determination, ready to charge straight ahead. I was hurt, so I quickly opened my eyes, whimpering as I raised my hand to stop him. "Ouch, how could you be so reckless?" Shen Yingnan panted heavily, beads of sweat trickling down his forehead, his gaze dark and intense. "What must this husband do to ease my lady's pain?" His blunt words flushed my cheeks crimson enough to draw blood. I averted my face awkwardly, murmuring in a soft, sticky sweet voice, "Have you never studied the fire avoidance diagrams before?" Before, my mind was wholly devoted to military campaigns and battles. I truly never learned such things. As he spoke, he sank deeper into me. His large hand guided mine downward, finally coming to rest upon a place of burgeoning heat. His voice seemed to carry a hint of concealed grievance. "Husband doesn't know how, wife teach me. All right, please, I beg you." I feared Shen Yingnan might recklessly continue without any method, potentially harming himself. Yet I had no desire to become his instructor in such matters. While Shen Yingnan wasn't paying attention, I kicked him off the bed. I casually tossed him the fireproof diagram the matron had left on the bed, stammering, You figure it out yourself. If you can't learn it, you can forget about getting back on this princess's bed." With those words, I wriggled under the blanket, rolling around. I cocooned myself in several layers, firmly tucked at the foot of the bed, hiding my pounding heartbeat and burning cheeks, afraid someone might notice. In less time than it takes to drink a cup of tea, Shen Yingnan returned to bed. He crept stealthily under my blanket, his hands moved with gentle pressure, caressing me slowly and deliberately, sending waves of tingling pleasure through my body. "My studies are complete. May my lady examine me." Shen Yingnan truly proved to be an exceptionally quick learner. He swiftly mastered all the tactical maneuvers depicted in the fire avoidance diagrams. Moreover, he grew increasingly adept in practice, even demonstrating the ability to extrapolate principles from single examples. Under Shen Yingnan's fierce assault, I was forced into retreat, utterly routed. In the end, I could only raise the white flag, whimpering and yielding to his every whim, but this man grew bolder with each concession. His words becoming increasingly brazen. "Darling, it's like this, isn't it, my lady? How well has your husband learned? Are you satisfied, my lady? What does my lady think of this new battle formation I've just devised?" I half closed my eyes. I opened my mouth and bit his shoulder hard. "Shut up." But I regretted it immediately after biting him. Shen Yingnan let out a muffled groan, his movements growing even more reckless. He tossed me about relentlessly for what felt like ages. He forced me to say many shameful, unspeakable nonsense. After calling for water 3 times in a row, I was utterly exhausted. I raised my hand to push him away, pleading incessantly, "No more, you, get out quickly." Shen Yingnan grabbed my wrist and flipped me over. He pinned both my hands above my head. Something unusual pressed against me from behind, and I froze instantly. "What are you?" Shen Yingnan breathed hot air into my ear, his voice hoarse. "Can you feel it, my lady? One last time." All right. The next day, I didn't wake until the sun was high in the sky. My entire body ached unbearably, as if I'd been run over by a cart. Her body was covered in bruises. The nanny and Lanyu looked on with heartache, their voices full of reproach. "That Marquis truly is an uncouth brute who doesn't know how to cherish someone. Look what is done to our princess." Exactly. Was the Marquis fighting a war with the princess? She's covered in wounds from head to toe. Recalling the passionate scenes from last night, my cheeks instantly burned hot. I unconsciously adjusted my collar. "Where's Shen Yingnan?" Lanyu quickly answered from the side. "The Marquis left early this morning and hasn't returned yet. Before leaving, he specifically instructed us not to disturb you, saying the princess must be tired." I rubbed my sore limbs, silently grumbling in my heart, "Oh, Shen Yingnan, you really are something, devouring someone whole and then slipping away without a trace. Just wait till I catch you. Let's see how this princess deals with you then." But after resting in the mansion for 10 days, I didn't even catch a glimpse of Shen Yingnan. According to the news Lanyu brought back, Shen Yingnan had been staying at the military camp in the suburbs all these days. He abandoned his bride and ran off the very next day after the wedding. This isn't something a normal person could do. The gossip-loving servants in the mansion whispered among themselves in private. They said the imperial princess from Linen City couldn't win Shen Yingnan's favor. The old nurse couldn't help feeling worried and tentatively asked me, "Princess, shall we leave the estate to search for the Marquis?" I clenched the handkerchief in my hand, gritting my teeth as I said, Shen Yingnan has made this princess lose face. It's time to settle this score with him properly." After alighting from the carriage, I stormed into the military camp with an imposing air. Before I could reach the entrance of Shen Yingnan's tent, a young girl stopped me. She appeared to be around 12 or 13 years old. Crossing her arms, she looked me up and down with undisguised disdain. Well, so you're the princess from Linen City. You don't look like much," she sneered. "You're as thin as a twig. Haven't you been eating? Be careful, a gust of wind might just blow you away." Lanyu grew furious and wanted to step forward to defend me, but I grabbed her arm to stop her. I stared at the woman without changing my expression and said coldly, "How dare you? Who do you think you are, speaking to this princess in such a manner?" The woman showed no concern upon hearing this, her smile dripping with disdain. "I'm Shen Lian, even if you married my brother. Neither he nor I like you. Even if you flaunt your princess status to intimidate others, I'll never acknowledge you as my sister-in-law." I straightened my posture and retorted, "Who says Shen Yingnan doesn't like me? If my brother truly liked you, why would he stay at the military camp for half a month? To be honest, My brother already has someone he loves in his heart, if it weren't for the royal family's meddling in matchmaking. My brother would never have married a spoiled princess like you. Shen Yingnan staying at the military camp had already made me lose face. Now I'm being publicly mocked by Shen Lian again. I couldn't help but feel anger rising, saying fiercely, "What gives you the right to call me delicate?" Shen Lian burst out laughing. "On our wedding day, my brother carried you all the way from the city gates back to our mansion, and the entire city witnessed it. You can't possibly deny this, can you? Every woman from our northern lands speaks with genuine capability, unlike you delicate women of linen, so frail you're practically useless." I retorted, "Who says we're useless? Don't believe me, let's settle this with a competition." Shen Lian looked at me with profound meaning in her gaze. "Alright then, in half a month, there will be a horsemanship competition in the camp. Does your highness dare to compete with me? If you win, I'll be at your service, but if your highness loses..." Before she could finish speaking, I interrupted her. "A challenge it is, then. Is your princess afraid of you? Your princess will not lose." Seeing me accept the challenge, Shen Lian ran off with a mischievous, triumphant grin. "Then I'll look forward to seeing the princess's grace." After Shen Lian had gone, Lan Yu looked at me timidly. "Princess, you've never learned to ride a horse, what are we to do?" Lan Yu's words struck my heart like a heavy boulder. Indeed, I've never ridden a horse before. Truly Shen Lian's provocation has muddled my mind, but the words were already spoken. What's done cannot be undone. If I withdrew from the competition now, it would only give Shen Lian ammunition to mock me and make others look down on me even more. This concerned the dignity of the royal family. Of course I couldn't back down. Steeling myself, I declared, "Let's go find Shen Yingnan." Arriving before Shen Yingnan's tent, I stopped the guards from announcing me and barged straight in. "Shen Yingnan, get your ass out here this instant." The tent fell into dead silence. Everyone exchanged glances. His gaze darted back and forth between Shen Yingnan and me. I froze too. He hadn't expected anyone else to be in his tent at that moment. Shen Yingnan sighed, rubbing his forehead, and waved his hand, signaling everyone to leave. One by one, they bowed to me, then filed out, as if fearing to be caught in the crossfire. Shen Yingnan took my hand and pulled me down to sit beside him. "What brings you here today, my dear wife?" His question only served to reignite the fire in my heart. I pushed him away fiercely and snapped, "It's all because of your doing. You've been missing for half a month, making me the subject of gossip. Now all the servants in the mansion are laughing at me for being a bride who can't please her husband. Shen Yingnan, you've ruined this princess's good reputation." Shen Yingnan drew closer, trapping me in his embrace with both hands, and said slowly, "It's all my fault for being too occupied with military affairs and neglecting my wife. I humbly beg your forgiveness, my lady." I smacked his head away and glared at him. "Don't think a few sweet words will make this princess forgive you. Not a chance." Shen Yingnan buried his head in the crook of my neck and mumbled, "Then what must this humble servant do for madam to calm her anger?" "I want you to teach me horseback riding," I blurted out. Shen Yingnan looked puzzled. "Why the sudden interest in learning to ride, my lady?" I recounted my bet with Shen Lian to him in detail. After hearing it, Shen Yingnan frowned, his face full of disapproval. "Nonsense. Lian grew up on horseback. You can't even ride. How will you beat her?" "I'll go talk to her and cancel your match," I pouted, glaring at him. "Shen Yingnan, are you crazy? I made a public declaration, and now you want me to back out at the last minute. Where will this princess's dignity be placed from now on? Where will the royal family's dignity be placed? Even if I can't win, I'd rather lose on horseback than let others laugh at me." Shen Yingnan gently patted my back to calm me down. All right, it was my fault. I underestimated my wife. I guarantee I'll teach you how to ride a horse within half a month." "Will that do now?" I shot him a glare. "That's more like it." Shen Yingnan suddenly lifted me up and sat me on his lap, his lips curling into a smirk. "Since you're becoming my student, shouldn't you offer your teacher a proper initiation gift?" My pupils dilated. "What apprenticeship gift?" Shen Yingnan tapped his index finger against his lips, giving a devilish smile. "Give me a kiss." Broad daylight. "Shen Yingnan, you shameless man, then I won't teach you, I suppose apart from me. My lady can't find a better master here." Angrily, I punched his chest several times. Taking advantage of the tent being empty, I pecked his cheek like a dragonfly skimming the water. Shen Yingnan rubbed his cheek lingeringly. "My lady's sincerity isn't enough. What counts as showing sincerity, my lady? Let me teach you." He gripped my waist, pressing closer as his scorching lips met mine. After the kiss, I gasped for breath, squirming beneath him. "Shen Yingnan, surely you can take me out horseback riding now." Yet Shunningnan's grip around my waist showed no signs of loosening. Instead, he pulled me even closer. Stop squirming. Just then, an unmistakable, alarming heat pressed against my hips, and I exclaimed indignantly, "Shunnyingnan, you shameless scoundrel." Shunnyingnan encircled me, chuckling foolishly. "It's been days since I last saw you. Just hearing your voice has me like this. It's just like your husband aching terribly for you too. Darling, have mercy on me. Let your husband catch his breath, won't you?" When I remained silent, the man's hands grew increasingly bold. By the time I changed into riding attire, my face was still flushed crimson. I couldn't help but lift my foot to kick Shunnyingnan in annoyance. With a thoroughly satisfied expression, he smiled meaningfully. "My wife is truly kind." Shunnyingnan led me to the horse riding field. He picked a relatively docile horse for me, carefully helping me mount the horse. He kept repeating, "Keep your back straight, look ahead, hold the reins firmly, and keep your feet in the stirrups, loosen your grip on the reins, don't be afraid, in a moment, squeeze the horse's sides firmly with your legs and slowly get it moving." Shunnyingnan first led the horse, walking me around twice. I gradually grew accustomed to the feeling of being on horseback. Shunnyingnan suddenly let out a whistle, and the horse began to gallop, startled by the sudden turn of events. I found myself flustered and disoriented. I cried out in alarm, "Shunnyingnan, I'm scared." Shunnyingnan leaped onto another horse and quickly caught up. "Don't be afraid, my lady, your husband will guide you. Hold the reins tight and grip with your legs." Gradually, I relaxed under his soothing words. The horse obediently began to trot. After several days of close instruction from Shunnyingnan, my horsemanship has basically reached a passable level. That day, I sat atop my horse. Feeling the wind whistle past my ears, an unprecedented sense of exhilaration welled up from deep within. "Shunnyingnan, look, this princess has learned to ride a horse." Seeing my triumphant expression, Shunnyingnan curled the corner of his lips and lifted me onto his horse in one swift motion. With his shout of "Giddy up," the horse galloped toward the distant hillside. Shunnyingnan rode with me to the top of the faraway slope. Before me stretched an endless expanse of desolate wilderness. The setting sun cast its afterglow across the vast desert, streaks of brilliant fireworks traced across the horizon. Unbidden, that ancient line of poetry surfaced in my mind. A solitary smoke rises straight in the vast desert. The setting sun hangs round over the long river. I couldn't help but look up and sigh to Shunnyingnan. "Shunnyingnan, the sunset here is truly beautiful. Back in Linen City, I've never seen such a magnificent and breathtaking scene before." Shunningnan's smile reached his eyes, his chest pressed against my back as he held me tighter. "Then I'll often take my wife to watch sunsets from now on." "Alright, though I must say, my wife is even more beautiful than this sunset." At this moment, I seemed to hear my own deafening heartbeat. I turned away my burning face. Deliberately letting fallen strands of hair obscure my vision, Shunnyingnan buried his head in the crook of my neck, his breath scorching as he teased, "My lady, why so silent?" I deliberately put on a stern face and nudged him with my elbow. "Shunnyingnan, you're so annoying." As I squirmed, Shunningnan's weapon stood at attention once more. I was so anxious I nearly cried. "You shameless man, how could you?" Shunnyingnan chuckled softly. "How can this be my fault? Blame my wife for being too beautiful. Your husband couldn't help himself. It's broad daylight. We're outside. Shunnyingnan, don't you dare misbehave. My lady implies that mischief is forbidden outdoors but permitted at home. Then let us return to the manor at once." After returning to the estate, the moment he helped me dismount, I bolted. I couldn't bear another moment in that man's company. Behind me came the sound of Shunningnan's hearty laughter. Only when washing up did I realize. Today I was so preoccupied with dealing with Shunnyingnan, I hadn't even noticed the chafing on my inner thighs, the tender flesh, now wet. Stung so badly I gasped. Seeing this, Shunnyingnan hastily found some ointment and began to apply it for me. As he rubbed, his hand began to wander, grinding suggestively elsewhere. I straightened my back and kicked him to the ground. "Stinky, get away from me." Shunnyingnan tilted his head to sniff his own armpit. "What stink?" I shot him a disgusted glare. "From now on, you're not allowed on my bed unless you've bathed." Shunnyingnan stood up, ruffled my hair, and said helplessly, "So spoiled. When we were marching to war, we often went half a month without a single bath." With that, he grumbled his way into the side chamber. In less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, he emerged shirtless. Water still dripped from the ends of his hair. The droplets slid down his well-defined waist and abdomen, disappearing into a patch of shadow. The sight made my cheeks flush and left me feeling somewhat parched. Shunnyingnan pulled me tightly into his embrace. His scorching lips pressed against mine with burning heat, his large hand slowly caressed upward along my slender waist. In no time, the ties of my inner garment were undone by him. He lingered among the snow-capped peaks, utterly enchanted. At the moment the arrow was about to be loosed, I suddenly came to my senses. Raising my hand against his chest, I pushed him away. No. Shinignan's face fell like frost-bitten eggplant, his voice full of grievance. My lady. Do you know how torturous it is to call a halt when troops are already at the city gates? I squirmed uneasily. I wanted to break free, but found myself utterly unable to escape. Muttering weakly under my breath, I said, my legs hurt, and it hurts there too. You were too demanding last night. In the stalemate, Shinyingnan was the first to yield. His words carried a hint of compromise. You're so spoiled, always tormenting me. Fine, I'll let you off for tonight. I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking I could finally sleep in peace. Yet Shinyingnan still wouldn't let me go. I was startled, staring at him with wide eyes. He whispered seductively in my ear, darling, since you started this fire, shouldn't you help your husband put it out? As he spoke, his hand guided mine downward from his rigid abdomen. The flames were too fierce, taking an eternity to extinguish. Shiningnan's labored breathing lingered in my ears. I turned my face away, blushing crimson. After what felt like ages, my arms grew weak, and I murmured shyly, are you done yet? Shinyingnan let out a low chuckle, his voice hoarse. My dear wife, this is just the beginning, isn't it? You, my wife, know best how formidable your husband is in battle. Until the fighting ceased, every inch of my body ached. I didn't even have the strength to lift my eyelids. Shinyingnan brought hot water and gently bathed me. In my dazed state, I was drawn into a scorching embrace and fell into a deep sleep. The day of my competition with Shinlian arrived. Shinyingnan helped me into my riding attire, hesitating before speaking. My lady, perhaps we should call off today's match. Lian is just being childish. I've spoiled her too much. Once you two spend more time together, things will improve. I shook my head and shot him a dagger-like glare. No, this matter concerns my dignity as a princess. How could I retreat like a coward? Shinyingnan quickly softened his voice to coax her. All right, my mighty wife, then your husband will cheer you on from the sidelines. Shinlian's horsemanship surpassed mine, and she quickly overtook me. She turned her head triumphantly, taunting me loudly. Princess, do you admit defeat? Will you surrender now? It seems the women of Linen City are truly delicate flowers. Haha, I'm the kind of person who can't stand being provoked. The more Shinlian gloated, the more unwilling I became to fall behind her. I raised my hand and pulled out the hairpin from my head, stabbing it into the horse's back. The horse, startled, bolted uncontrollably, suppressing my fear. I tightened my legs around the horse's belly. Soon I overtook Shinlian. She spat out a curse. This is madness. I finally crossed the finish line a step ahead of Shinlian, but the horse showed no signs of stopping. Instead, it ran faster and faster, charging forward uncontrollably. Panicked, I could only grip the reins tightly and leave it to fate. Seeing this, Shinyingnan spurred his horse and galloped after me. With one leap, he vaulted onto my horse. His arms encircled mine as he grasped the reins. After his efforts, the horse finally came to a stop, a false alarm. But even after dismounting, I was still overwhelmed with lingering fear. Shiningnan's face darkened as he scolded sharply. Xieshuening, are you trying to get yourself killed? If I had arrived just a moment later, your life might have ended here today. Tears spilled uncontrollably from my eyes, biting my lip with a look of grievance. I shouted at him, Shinyingnan, I was scared to death just now, and you dare yell at me. With that, I turned away angrily and stormed off, walking while wiping away tears, but somehow, no matter how hard she wiped, the tears just wouldn't stop. Shinyingnan seemed to let out a helpless sigh. He strode forward, caught my hand, and softened his tone. All right, I was wrong just now. His voice was low, carrying a hint of appeasing coaxing. I shouldn't have snapped at you. Don't cry anymore, okay? I stood there with my head bowed, unwilling to engage with him. Shinyingnan lifted his sleeve to wipe away my tears. I was just overly concerned and lost my composure. A mad horse's hooves have no eyes. What if you'd been hurt? What would we have done then? I, Shinyingnan, have finally been blessed with a pharaoh-like beauty as my wife. Without you, where could I ever find such a marvelous person again? I knew I had acted impulsively earlier and muttered gloomily. Then will you still scold me? Shinyingnan bent down and gave me a deep bow, lightly slapped myself across the face. My dear wife, your husband was wrong. I'll never dare do it again. I gave him an annoyed kick. If there's a next time, you'll be sleeping in the study. Shinyingnan hurried forward to embrace me, pouting pitifully. That won't do at all, your husband can't bear to be apart from you for even a single day. I laughed through my tears and shot him a glare. Shameless, everyone's watching, behave yourself. I won the competition. But Shun Lian looked unconvinced. You cheated, I won't accept this. I looked at her with a half smile, my expression proud and teasing. What, haven't you heard that all's fair in love and war, whether you admit it or not? I won today, are you trying to weasel out of it? Shun Lian pouted as she argued with Shen Yingnan. Brother, look at her, how can she be like this? You have to settle this for me. Shen Yingnan stroked his chin and said solemnly. A bet is a bet, everyone here saw it, the princess beat you fair and square, you've got to admit that. Besides, the princess was raised in the palace and has never learned horsemanship. In just half a month, she not only learned to ride but also defeated you. Her efforts are no less than yours. From now on, you're not allowed to trouble her again, or don't blame your brother for being harsh with you. Shen Lian was left speechless. She gritted her teeth and gave me a deep bow. Princess, please accept Lian's obeisance. I admit my defeat and shall henceforth be at your service. I bent forward to help her up, smiling faintly. No need for formalities. As the younger sister of Marquis Dingbei, we shall be family from now on. Shen Lian whispered in my ear. Don't celebrate too soon. Though you've beaten me, I never said I'd accept you as my sister-in-law. The only sister-in-law in my heart is Sister Yuntang. After completing the formalities, Shen Lian left, but her pointed words planted a thorn in my heart. Shen Yingnan held me close and said gently, my dear. Don't mind her, she's just a child. Lian has a good nature, she'll come to appreciate your kindness in time. I gave him a sidelong glance. Oh, then tell me, what's so good about me? Shen Yingnan tilted his head with interest, pondering slowly before saying, delicate and soft all over. Absolutely perfect in every way. A flush of embarrassment rose to my face as I pounded his chest in frustration. Shen Yingnan, you shameless man. My competition with Shen Lian made me famous overnight in Dingbei City. Both the household staff and the city's commoners couldn't stop talking about the incident. Everyone treated me with great respect, and the previous murmurs of discussion vanished. Shen Yingnan spent every day either inspecting the military camp or sticking to my side. This man was like an insatiable wolf. He was always thinking about studying new military formations with me all day long, night after night without rest. I truly trained harder than the soldiers in Shen Yingnan's camp. Sometimes upon waking, I couldn't even straighten my waist. Yet the instigator remained completely unaffected. This gave Shen Yingnan the perfect opportunity to mock me. He would constantly tease me about being too delicate. That guy really deserves a good beating. Yet no matter how angry I got, I couldn't defeat him between the sheets. To protect my delicate frame, I took the old nurse's suggestion. I sent Shen Yingnan away from the manor, tossing him into the military camp for 10 days or half a month. Shen Yingnan clutched the bundle I'd ordered packed for him, clinging pitifully to the doorframe. My lady, could you truly bear to abandon your husband and leave him lonely in an empty chamber? The night is long and dreary, my lady. How can you bear to leave me suffering the torment of longing in the military camp? All the servants in the mansion now follow my orders. With just a glance from me, several attendants stepped forward and escorted Shen Yingnan out of the mansion. Without my permission, no one is allowed to let him in. Shen Lian, feeling sorry for her brother, came to argue with me. I looked at her calmly and said, losers don't get to say tilde speak one more word and this princess will send you to keep him company too. Though Shen Lian was willful, she ultimately had no desire to suffer the hardships of military camp. In the end, she could only leave resentfully. With Shen Yingnan, that tormenting nemesis, gone from the room, I sleep exceptionally soundly every night. Unfortunately, my peaceful days didn't last long. Something happened on Shen Yingnan's end. That day, I was taking an afternoon nap. Shen Lian rushed over in a hurry and yanked me up by the arm. Princess, the fire is singeing our eyebrows, please. Stop sleeping. Bewildered, I squinted at her with half-closed eyes. Lian, why are you so flustered? What's happened? Lahan's tears were now streaming down her face as she spoke incoherently. The military camp is in chaos, and my brother's life is hanging by a thread. The deputy general is away on patrol and hasn't returned. There's no one in the tent who can take charge and make decisions. Princess, I've come specifically to beg for your intervention, rest assured. After this matter is settled, I'll serve you as if you were my own ancestor. Hearing this, my heart gave a violent shudder. I quickly changed my clothes and had Lan Yu and the matron summon the guards. Lian, don't panic yet, let's talk as we walk. It turned out that Shen Yingnan's personal guard battalion had been infiltrated by spies from the Western who, Shen Yingnan and his trusted aides investigated repeatedly, yet the spy never revealed any flaws. Then, taking advantage of when several of Shen Yingnan's key deputy generals were out on patrol, the spy poisoned the army's cooking pot. Shen Yingnan and half the soldiers in the camp were poisoned. All poisoned individuals are currently in a coma. Shen Yingnan's men have only determined so far that the spy was hiding among the cooks. They haven't yet identified exactly who it is. When I entered Shen Yingnan's command tent, I was met with a chaotic scene. The crowd argued endlessly, yet couldn't reach any conclusion. The noise gave me a headache, so I roared, "Shut up, all of you." The tent instantly fell silent as a graveyard. I swept my gaze around and spoke. "Can anyone tell me what urgent issues currently need to be addressed in the camp?" The people below exchanged glances before sending a representative to step forward and respond. "Reporting to Your Highness, there are 3 major problems. First, all the cooks have been detained. Who will prepare the meals for the soldiers before the traitor is uncovered? Secondly, it's uncertain whether the traitor's poisoning was part of a planned scheme. Should we recall the patrol officers? Thirdly, the military physicians have yet to identify the exact nature of this poison, making it impossible to administer the proper remedy. We fear that any further delay may endanger the lives of the Marquis and his men." The man wiped cold sweat from his forehead, hanging his head uneasily. The commander's poisoning was no trivial matter. If word got out, it could shake the army's morale. Delays would breed complications. Running through all potential issues in my mind, I spoke calmly. Immediately seal off news of the Marquis being poisoned. Anyone who leaks information will face military punishment. This princess's dowry includes imperial chefs and 3,000 attendants. Until this matter is resolved, they shall be responsible for camp provisions. The Western who barbarians harbor wolfish ambitions. We must be vigilant. Summon the deputy generals at once and have them return to take charge of camp affairs. Dispatch someone bearing this princess's command to swiftly summon imperial physicians from the detached palace for consultation in the military tent. There's no need for panic, my friends. The sky won't fall, and I shall stand with you through thick and thin." Hearing this, the crowd below immediately knelt and kowtowed, chanting in unison, "We are at Your Highness's command. Long live the princess." Shen Lian, her eyes brimming with tears, also prostrated herself with the others, fervently crying long live. I helped her up and addressed the crowd. "Please rise, everyone, and quickly carry out the orders." Shen Lian looked at me with a face full of remorse, choking back sobs as she said, "Princess sister-in-law, thank you. Before, I was willful and unreasonable. Sister-in-law's noble sacrifice in saving my elder brother and the soldiers is a debt I, Lian, will never forget for the rest of my life." Shen Yingnan was right. Shen Lian had just turned 13 this year. She was still a child, a good child who knew how to correct her mistakes. I held her in my arms and comforted her softly. "Good child, sister-in-law doesn't blame you. Back in the day, across all of Linen City, you couldn't find a girl more mischievous than your sister-in-law." Shen Lian's sorrow turned to joy as she buried her face in my embrace, acting coquettishly. "You're so kind, sister-in-law." By the time the imperial physician arrived at the tent, a female military doctor also came to Shen Yingnan's bedside. Though dressed in plain clothes, her delicate beauty was impossible to conceal. I heard Shen Lian familiarly call her sister Yuntang. So this was the one Shen Lian had mentioned, Lin Yuntang, Shen Yingnan's beloved. Because of this, I kept an extra eye out, watching her quietly from the side. I don't know if it's just my imagination, but I noticed she treats Shen Yingnan no differently from the other soldiers. It seems she regards him as just another ordinary patient. I couldn't figure it out no matter how hard I thought. Yet I couldn't bring myself to ask her directly. Just as my mind was tangled like hemp fibers, sleep came bearing a pillow. That day, I was just about to enter the tent. Lin Yuntang stopped me in my tracks. She twisted her fingers together nervously and stammered, "Your Highness, this humble subject has an impertinent request. I wonder if Your Highness would grant it." "I, speak freely, Miss Lin. This princess is willing to hear the details." The matter of Shen Yingnan's poisoning did not spread or cause wider repercussions. The imperial physician diagnosed and identified both the cause of poisoning and its antidote. Camp affairs also returned to normal under the deputy general's supervision. Western Hu spies were rooted out. We even followed the clues to uncover the Western Hu people's conspiracy. The deputy general led his troops in turning the enemy's scheme against them. They successfully crushed the rebellious Western Hu people who intended to cause trouble. Dingbei City returned to complete tranquility. The tension that had built up over several days finally eased momentarily, yet a stone still weighs heavy in my heart. Shen Yingnan shows no signs of waking yet, gazing at the motionless man lying in bed. No matter what sweet words I whisper in his ear, he remains unresponsive. Brimming with grievances and resentment, I couldn't help but burst into angry shouts. Shen Yingnan, you big jerk, why don't you use the same energy you always do when bullying me? Woo-woo, it's all your fault, because of you. This princess hasn't had a single good night's sleep in half a month. You know how precious I am. If you don't wake up soon, I'll divorce you. I'm leaving for Linen City right now, and I'll never come back to this wretched Dingbei city again. Before I go, I'll arrange for Yuntang to be your concubine. You like her, don't you? You two can live together from now on. I cursed between sobs, my vision blurred by tears, completely unaware that the person on the bed had already opened their eyes. A faint "how dare you" reached my ears. At first, I thought I was hallucinating and quickly scanned my surroundings. Finally, my gaze met a pair of eyes on the couch that seemed to hold a myriad of stars. I rubbed my eyes in disbelief, then widened them. Shen Yingnan, you're awake. Woo-woo, you're finally awake. Do you have any idea how scared I was? If you hadn't woken up, I was going to divorce you and return to Linen City. Woo-woo, days of accumulated grievances and terror instantly collapsed. Pouring out uncontrollably, I threw myself onto him and burst into loud sobs. Shen Yingnan realized he had frightened me terribly. He gently patted my back and softly comforted me. It's all right now, my dear. Don't be afraid, your husband's life is tough as nails. Even the king of hell wouldn't dare claim him yet. The news of Shen Yingnan's awakening spread through the army like sweet rain after a long drought. The generals wept for joy, the soldiers' morale soared even higher. Shen Yingnan learned everything that happened during his unconsciousness from his deputy. After the deputy left, he embraced me with a pained expression. My dear wife, you've had a hard time these past days. It's all my fault for making you worry and toil for me. I leaned into his embrace, fiddling with his lapel, and said softly, these past days have indeed been exhausting, but marching forward and retreating alongside all the soldiers has taught me much, to be honest. When father first ordered me to marry into the northern lands, resentment simmered in my heart. The days spent steadying the troops' morale in your tent made me realize my duty as a princess of this nation. Truth be told, I was afraid too, but I couldn't show it, because I'm the princess, their pillar of strength. Thank heavens for watching over you, you scoundrel, otherwise I'd truly be afraid. Shen Yingnan ruffled my hair, his chin nuzzling against the crook of my neck. My wife is the bravest, she's the finest princess in all the world. Don't worry, my love, from now on, your husband will never let you live in fear again. I remember that first meeting, when he wore that sour expression. I couldn't resist teasing him. On your wedding day, Marquis, you complained about this princess being too precious and delicate, and now you say such things. Don't you find yourself contradicting your own words, Marquis? Shen Yingnan grasped my hand firmly and lightly slapped his own face twice with it, chuckling sheepishly. My dear, look at this husband's foul mouth, it truly deserves a beating. Now that you've punished it, won't you stop being angry with your husband? Please tilde. I reached out and pinched his cheek hard. You incorrigible rogue. Then the tone suddenly shifted. Shen Yingnan, I said so much that day, but you didn't wake up, the moment I mentioned taking Miss Lin as your concubine. You woke right up. It seems you truly adore Miss Lin above all else. I'll make sure to arrange this matter for you promptly. Upon hearing this, Shen Yingnan hurriedly propped himself up and defended. My lady, I haven't, don't speak nonsense. My relationship with Yuntang is purely that of siblings. She's the daughter of my father's sworn brother, meaning she's practically my cousin. Before my uncles went off to war, they entrusted her to my care. After they died in battle, I gained another sister. I swear, I truly only see Yuntang as a sister, just like Lian, my own flesh and blood. Besides, my heart has long been occupied by someone else. There's no room for anyone else. Me. Oh, then I'll pack my things early to make space for your beloved. Shen Yingnan was as frantic as an ant on a hot pan, his eyes reddening as a single tear fell. My love, you are the one who holds my heart. In this lifetime, I'm sticking to you, don't even think of running away. The corners of my mouth, which I had been desperately trying to suppress, finally curled up again uncontrollably. Shen Yingnan, you've finally admitted it. Then this princess can consider our first meeting grudge settled. Actually, I've known all along. Lin Yuntang only sees Shen Yingnan as a brother. It wasn't romantic affection between a man and woman. That day Lin Yuntang came to find me. The reason was she wanted to study medicine with the imperial physician accompanying me. The northern lands are not like Linen City. There are few doctors here, but many patients. Lin Yuntang's medical skills were mostly self-taught through studying medical texts. The incident of Shun Yingnan's poisoning opened her eyes to the exceptional skills of imperial physicians, especially since the imperial physicians in the palace are the finest from across the entire nation. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her, so she came to ask me for permission to become an apprentice and learn the craft. Lin Yuntang, with the compassion of a healer, cared deeply for the people. I will certainly do my utmost to support her. Lahan's earlier words had made me uncertain. What exactly was Shun Yingnan thinking? I needed to hear a definite answer from him. Shun Yingnan finally realized I was teasing him. He leaned over to look at me, amusement glinting in his eyes. Then he pulled me close in one swift motion, his warm breath brushing against my face. His voice was tenderly teasing. My lady deceived me tonight. You'll have to make it up to your husband properly. I feigned ignorance. How will you compensate me? I followed his gaze downward, finally stopping at that conspicuous anomaly. Shun Yingnan lowered his head with a light chuckle, enticingly saying, "My dear, look, we all miss you. Let's attend to the important matters first." The moonlight grew deeper, as enduring as the love between two souls. The end.